Welcome to the Fly Culture Podcast, bringing you interviews, reviews and fishing tips. Here's your host, Pete2.
Well, Vito, I promised I'd come back, and it is just awesome to be back with you in Italy again. Great to see you, man.
It's great to have you back. I mean, we were all excited before you came because this group is gold for us, and I say it as Italy on the Fly, but on behalf also of the team, the guys were so happy, and I think it shows, when you have these good vibes, not only the fishing is more productive, but also the after fishing, creates that great vibes, and it's also holiday, right? So this is what it's all about.
And we've been lucky with the group as well that, and I know as a former guide that the dynamics of a group and knowing the people, it's worked really, really well already. We've been laughing, we've been joking and everything else. And as a guide and as somebody looking after us on this trip, that's always really important as well too, isn't it?
It is. First of all, I mean, the Latin used to say similia cum similibus, which means the similar attracts the similar. So we are always like-minded, fishing is important. We all want to catch big fish. And today is the day where we will try to catch the big fish. But we are so happy to look after any part of the trip for you. And I think when there are these moods, also, the problems arising on a trip, for example, when a flight is in delay or they lose the luggage, becomes kind of opportunity to have a banter, because we had, someone losing the luggage and ending up with very debatable underwear. So, this is a big part of the trip.
Absolutely, and the fun of that, and that's my good friend Ray who's come along, and his luggage got lost in Frankfurt. It's thankfully turned up now, but he had some very dubious pants that he was wearing. We're almost sort of saying if anything goes wrong, he's got a spare pair. I think that someone else might have to wear these, but they're not the sort of thing I think many people would go out and actually want to buy. But for the 3 days that we're fishing, we've got that lovely mix of fishing, mountain streams, dry flies, euro nymphing, big grayling, marble trout. For me, the attraction is the great variety of fishing, and there is a fabulous variety of fishing here, isn't there?
That's what makes northern Italy in general, but also especially Trentino, very special. Because according to the taste, you can fish up high in the alpine environment on a very tiny stream, but then you can go down in the valley to chase, the trophy, or you got the alternative of the alpine lake. And that is not only according to the taste, but sometimes also according to the water condition. So even if in the very unlucky event of heavy rain or whatever, we always have places to fish.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it. And the conditions are, from a fishing point of view, are really interesting. The last time we were over, very, very bright, and we were heading up the Cistern. The water was cooler up there, but it's just about perfect from the senses, a little bit overcast, relatively humid. So I think we're going to be in good shape for today, aren't we?
So I'm going to say something a guy should never say, but look, there are the conditions. I will deny it in a while. No, I mean, the main river, which now is the Sarka for us, down in the valley, I must say, I must admit, is in a very good shape. So today we are trying to tackle the big fish. Why not? Because, size doesn't matter, but don't mind if we do. Of course, to chase the big fish, we should fish the way they like. So we'll be mostly nymphing, or maybe why not for the one that likes it, streamer. The other ones went up high in the mountain, where big fish, they could find big fish in small water. That's another interesting variant. And a third group is going downstream to chase also the big grayling, because in this area, we don't have to forget, there are also grayling. And it is a lower part as well. So 3 different stretches of water, 3 different environments, 3 different ways of targeting the fish and the water. We'll see.
And the lovely thing about this as well is that the guys have worked incredibly hard to take us, and there is so much fishing here, I can't underestimate that, but what they've done is try to show us somewhere different this time, because a lot of the group, it was such a success last year that a lot of the group have come back again, and we only lost Rebecca and Johannes simply because they have a young family and the two of them couldn't come along. But the guys are taking us to different spots now, and we're looking at different species and techniques and everything else that goes with that as well. So it's been great to come back again. Everything's familiar, yet we're doing something different, and I think that's one of the wonderful things about the variety. So we're going to give it a good go. As a former guide myself as well, it's never nailed on we're going to catch a fish, but we're going to have a bloody good go at it. It's a sensory overload. I'm sort of looking at every little pocket, back eddy, and trying to think where the best shot, my first shot, will go. I'm guessing these pools will spook very, very quickly, so I look for the money shot first and then work from there. But there's a hell of a lot to take in. I've been catching a few fish as well. I've got a beetle pattern on, high sticking it down the pools. I've missed a couple as well. One of the things I should know better, that at the very back, when you think the water's dropping down into the next pool, I missed a fish down there, so that's reminded me to keep that rod nice and high and let that fly go all the way down. I'm at a steeper section of river here. I don't know if you can hear it, but the water is tumbling down here, and the pots, some of them are sort of 8-9 feet by 3 or 4 feet. Some are just briefcase size, and I'm just looking for anywhere to land that fly. As I said, I've got a picking, I would guess one of the biggest challenges of fishing this water is picking the fly out in the foamy heads there, because the fish are sitting deeper underneath and coming up into that foam. So the beetle pattern I've got on has got a white post on it, so I can pick that up nice and easily. I've got some bigger patterns as well, some patterns that Jay Lee sent me a little while ago that I'm really looking forward to trying at some stage as well. They're a little bigger too. Stefano thinks a little bit later in the day. The sun's out, it's humid, there was some overnight rain as well, but the river's absolutely crystal clear, and I'm just enjoying jumping between pot and pot and seeing what I can find. I'm fishing with my good friend Ray today. He's with Stefano at the moment, and I've gone, 300-400 yards further upstream, and it's a nice way for me to get into the feel of the trip and just spend some time on my own fishing these little pockets and reacquainting myself with these beautiful trout from this stream. The takes when they come are good and positive. I really wanted to, despite what Stefano had wisely said, to hold back the bigger fly to a little bit later, but I thought I'd try one because Jay tied these flies up for me, and I really wanted to use one, see if I can catch a fish on it. And I learned something, that I came into the tail of a relatively long pool by these standards, probably 20 feet long. The flow hits a big rock and then almost runs down the right side as you look upstream. And I flipped the fly into the tail. As I'd been saying, the fish had been coming up and eating the fly at the back of the tail, and I spooked what has probably been the nicest fish I've seen so far today, about 13-14 inches, and I saw it bolt up. So it could be the fly landing on the water, it could be the size of the fly, and I've been mixing between the beetle and a really buoyant clink hammer, popped the clink hammer back on, rested the pool for a sec, and then had another fish. So, of course, always listen to the guide. The guide knows exactly what they're talking about, but I'm just loving figuring this sort of stuff out and learning as I'm going along. And like I said, it's a really nice way to ease myself into it. I'm trying to enjoy as much as I possibly can. And it's the first day, and I really don't want to rush everything at a manic pace and come back completely knackered. So I'm sort of trying to savour every section, every pool as much as I possibly can, yet still work it. And even if I don't catch a fish in the pool, then I'll wait for a little bit before I make a few more steps upstream. But the river's dropping a little bit more here. There's a boulder in front of me that's sort of a small van size really, and that's funneling the water quite nicely. And then upstream, 2 pools up, there's another one similar sort of size on the right as I look upstream, and where that drops is a lovely plunge pool There's a rock in the middle and there's a flow behind it to the sides. There's a lot there. I'd call that probably a target-rich environment. So I'm going to step up there, and it's a case of figuring how to work up through these pools, your easiest and safest route. It's worth fishing off your other shoulder as well. So I've gone across the other side of the river. I'm standing on the left side as I look upstream at the moment, but sometimes I'll go across, make a few short flicks off the other side, and left-handed sometimes as well, and that's worked for me as well. So just being flexible, thinking about my route as well. I'm looking for the easiest route round some of these bigger rocks as well. So like I say, just taking a lot of this in and enjoying every second of it. Honesty and integrity is really important to me, and Stefano and Ray called up with me and I came clean. I told him that I'd used Jay's fly a little too early and I spooked a nice fish, so I feel completely better about that. The other thing is that when the guys appeared, you feel not under pressure because Stefano, Paolo and Vito are all excellent guides and put you at ease, but you sort of kind of want to perform, and from somebody who's been the other side of the fence, it was interesting to see that. I so wanted to be able to catch a fish to show them that they'd come up with the right tactics, the right approach to the river as well. And I was lucky enough to catch a little one, so I felt great about that. We're leapfrogging each other now, about 200 yards between the two of us. And I sort of noticed as well that there's a pattern forming for me. The last few pools have been pretty quiet actually, and it's been the flatter, slightly flatter bits, the seams, where I've been catching fish. But last few pools it's gone a little quieter, and I couldn't tell you what the reason for that is, but I'm sort of contemplating a change, perhaps back to the Beetle, perhaps even back to Jay's, but don't tell Stefano, whatever you do. It's been great to be back, and we're fishing with Stefano today. There's Ray and myself, and it's just dream pocket water for somebody who loves it so much. Stefano, it's wonderful to see you again. Where are we today?
Yeah, we are on the Arnaud Creek, mountain stream of the Alto Sarca. Not really up in the mountain, we are 1,000 meter high, something like this. And the beautiful part of this creek is the color of the water with this really rocky habitat where pool, stream, and just fish everywhere. And it's just necessary to pocket around. Sometimes you have bigger pool and bigger run where you can cast a bit and enjoy a bit of sight fishing. But here is incredible how the fish come from nowhere to take your fly.
And it's a nice way to start the trip, isn't it? That you're sort of fishing the water, and so there isn't that early stage of the pressure of seeing a fish and casting to it. It's sort of a really nice way to get your eye in and get into the feel of the river and the speed of the fish and everything else.
Yeah, you know, the strategy in guiding is something important. Don't look like, but it is. And a place like this can put the fisherman in the right mood to enjoy all the trip, because you get a lot of chance to get the fish, and the environment is perfect and the color of the water too. So you can just relax, and the habitat and the environment give you the chance to do that and catch some fish.
And you've got to check out Stefano's social media as well, because he's a wonderful, you can see he lives and breathes fishing. And in the car he was telling us the amount of days he's getting very few days off, which is testament to him and Paolo as well. What an amazing job that they do. And how has your season been? Has it been a good one? And is it a different one, or is it a similar sort of pattern that the season has taken?
But after COVID, you know, the situation during the pandemic was a bit difficult for us because the people can't really travel. So now we are in a good moment because the people like to travel, like to try something new, a new experience. And so even not really just the expert fisherman, but even someone want to enjoy a day in the nature and try this magic world.
And it was wonderful what you said as well about in the car, that Ray asked the question, what sort of people do you like to guide? But for you, it's about finding the people who feel the same way that you do about this water, rather than the size of the fish or the numbers of the fish. Would that be right?
Yes, I really like the people understand what means fly fishing, of course, for me, but it's an idea of the fly fishing. So the connection with the nature and the peaceful you can find in this kind of environment, and the peaceful in the mind when you are on the river casting your fly on a fish. That's the problem, nothing more.
So if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you'll know that I talk about my good friend Ray, the dude, and we had an episode where we fished in Denmark and he got us out of a jam where the fishing was really, really difficult, and did one of those classic cases, cast over here, I think there may be fish here, and lo and behold, we caught a fish. And I'm thrilled that he's come and joined us in Italy today, and we got the first morning under our belt. What is it like leaving the sea trout of Denmark to come fish a stream again? Have you enjoyed it?
I have enjoyed it tremendously, and it's a really different experience. Those of you that have fished in the salt know that it's, fairly heavy equipment, big flies, shooting heads and the like. But here, it's the opposite. I think probably the best rod for the pocket water that we fished this morning is probably a, 7.5 foot 3 weight or something like that. So in terms of certainly in terms of casting, of which we actually do very little, we're really just kind of high sticking in pocket water, trying to get a good drift for as long as we possibly can. Very, very different experience, but no less rewarding, because we've actually had some nice fish so far today.
It's been fun, hasn't it? Like you say, completely different. You've gone from one extreme to the other, just a short line, quick drift, and then move on. And that have you found that you've needed to adjust a little bit? Because your background obviously has always been rivers, and then the move to Denmark meant that your fishing changed as a result of it. Has it taken a bit of time to settle in? It didn't look like it to me, I have to say, but how did it feel?
Surprisingly, not much adjustment time to this type of fishing, like, riding a bike. It came back, quicker than I actually thought. So I was a bit concerned before we hit the water that it would take me a while to come into river form again. But no, I'm pleased to say that it's something that actually you never really leaves you, or you forget.
Well, I'm pleased to say we've got a few more days of this left as well. And Stefano, you caught a magical moment that I was sort of kneeling down watching Ray fish, and he was sort of knelt down casting. It was almost a religious scene, wasn't it?
Yes, there was a funny moment during the river where the people was on the knees close to a pool, and was looking like people praying the church. And at the end, this is our church, no?
That's exactly right, my friend, exactly right.
Perfect.
While we were on the river, Stefano took a picture of Ray and I, and it looked as though we were praying at the altar of the trout. I didn't pray hard enough, I guess, because in the afternoon there was one last pool, and I said, Stefano, I've got to throw a streamer through there. I've got to pull a streamer through there. And I pulled a streamer through there, and the trout weren't home. And I guess I hadn't prayed hard enough, because I slipped off a rock and took some water on yesterday. So I've been getting a lot of grief overnight and this morning about shipping a bit of water and falling down. So I'm going to do my utmost not to do that today. We got a fun day packed that I'm going to try and share with you as it unfolds. But yesterday, one of the really, really interesting things was how in the morning, the trout were rising really, really freely and eating stuff. We were sort of fishing these pockets and wherever we thought might hold a trout, and they would come up and have a go. Not always, but they were eating it really confidently. After lunch, just a short time after, they were continuing to do that, and then it sort of tailed off a little bit in the evening. And I think that was the interesting part of that was when we came back in the evening and everyone said the same. And the conclusion was there was a change in pressure a little bit. It's incredibly humid. It stayed dry, but that's how it felt, and everyone reported the same. So it did tail off a little bit. We're mixing up and we're doing some different stuff today. Some of the guys are looking for some good sized grayling, and we're going to have a look for some marble trout, and then a couple of the guys are heading right up into the mountains to stalk fish with dry flies as well. So we've got a lovely mix. So the fun part of these things as well is when you get back in the evening and everyone shares what's happened on the day, and it's been really good fun to do that. And we were drinking out on the terrace of the hotel late last night, just talking about fishing and how the day had been and what we're looking forward to today. So I'll do my very utmost to share as much of it with you as I possibly can. So I fished my first pool now, and we're on the main river Sark. The interesting thing for me is that the clarity of the water, it has a sort of a milky tinge to it, which I think probably in my limited experience may well give us a tiny bit of advantage from a camouflage point of view. The river is, from the river that we were fishing, the high mountain streams, the pools are a lot longer. There's still some big boulders around here, but we're Euro-nymphing in here. It seems to me to make perfect sense to do so. And I'm not a big Euro-nymph user, not because I don't like it, it's because it's the way that I fish at home. But I'm really enjoying it. I've got my ever faithful Bannister 9.5 foot 4-weight CTS blank, which will work as a Euro rod as well. So I've got that in there. We may fish some streamers a little bit later as well. So I put a fly line in just in the back of my pack there at the moment. Conditions, like we'd said, it's overcast at the moment. It's it's pretty warm. And it feels right. I've dropped 3 small fish. The takes are really subtle. So I've got to sharpen up my game. I've not done this for a little while now, so I've got to sharpen up my game with that, but I'm sort of primed. I'm 3 cappuccinos in, so I should be in relatively good shape to give these fish a go. So, and I've been sort of manipulating the fly, little jigs at the rod tip here and there. I prefer, and I know the guys say strike at the end, but I sort of like that gentle induced lift. You've got to have your wits about you with that. If a fish does come up, that you've got to hit that pretty quickly. But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. We're fishing pretty heavy bugs as well. So I've got, I think it's a 4.5 mil on the point and probably a 3 mil on the dropper at the moment. So I think I'm getting down, I'm catching rocks. I've picked up the odd twig as well. So I think I'm in the right ballpark at the moment. Where I'm fishing is a little drop of about probably a foot or so. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sort of channels that I've worked really hard. I was expecting it to be a deeper plunge pool, but it's not. I don't know if that's a function of the rock, that the rock's pretty hard, so that it's probably taken many millions of years just to even wear those pots. But they're not as deep as I thought they were. But yeah, it's been really good fun so far. So I'm learning as I go along. I'm really enjoying it. Steve's just downstream of me. There's a bridge there, and of course, as anglers, we all know bridges and fish. So he's having a little bit of a go there. So I think I may wander upstream a little bit. There's a nice little pot. I'm trying to sort of navigate my way through that at the moment up to the next pool. I'm pleased to say I'm no longer a stranger to the Sarka River and managed to catch a fish. And it was I've had a couple actually in the first couple of pools, so I've been extremely lucky. I missed a couple, as I said earlier. The first fish I landed, though, was a marble hybrid, which was really exciting to see. I've not seen one of these before, so I didn't know much about them. And I wonder, Vito, if you could tell myself and listeners what a marble hybrid actually is.
Right, so we always have to remember that it's a wild hybrid, because nowadays when we mention the word hybrid, maybe hatchery is the first thing coming to our mind, but that's not the case, because in the nature, the wild marble trout and the wild brown trout, they do mix and hybridate. The result is you might have pretty much a marble with that marble livery tiger pattern, but with a few spots which are typical of the brown trout, because the pure marble doesn't have spots. Or you might have a brown trout but you can see like underneath a kind of canvas of marble pattern, let's say. So this is very important to specify that this is a wild hybrid. All over the Alpine Arch, the marble trout is the real native trout of the area. So from Piedmont at the west, close to France, up to the eastern region, so Trentino, and then Friuli Venezia Giulia, and then ending up in Slovenia. So that was our native trout all over the Alpine Arch. Then we also had the Mediterranean brown trout, but the Austrian Emperor back in the days, and that was more to feed people rather than to please people with recreational fishing, did a lot of stocking back in the days, I'm talking about centuries ago, also with the Atlantic strain of the brown trout. And it got a bit of ground for this hybridization. Here there are several projects all over Italy to restock the pure and help, the wild stock of the pure marble trout. There are institutional hatcheries, and they restock maybe fries and so on. They go with electrofishing, is more tributary, to get the pure stud and the pure male, and so that to help, the wild stock and the reintroduction, let's say, to reinforce the wild stock, which is present at the moment. But with the hybridization and river dams and so on in general, nowadays not like it was centuries ago, that will help.
That's fantastic. Well, that's cleared that up for me, and I edge ever nearer. It was really thrilling to see a species I'd not caught before, and I might even get lucky enough to find a marble. So the search continues. There's just the soundtrack of the river, which is wonderful to hear, and yeah, I'm really, really enjoying just flipping some nymphs in pockets, just trying to read the water. And it's funny, when you're fishing here for a day, you try and take in as much as you possibly can, and there is so much. So I'm sort of kind of trying to play the averages a bit, in the sense of fishing where I think there might be fish and working from there. And Steve's just a little bit downstream. We're sort of leaving ourselves plenty of water and just working our nymphs through the pools. And then we're going to go and fish some streamers as well. Vito says there's a nice pool where streamer may rule supreme. So yeah, upwards and onwards. At lunchtime, the guides keep in touch with each other, find out what's happening, conditions, things they'd noticed, anything to put the odds in our favour. And I was watching and listening to Vito talking to Stefano. And although I didn't really, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't understand what they were saying, I heard bellissimo and a few other words that made me think something might have happened with one of the other fishermen. And it sounds like it has done. So I can't wait to catch up with the lucky angler. We're in a really cool spot. You can probably hear again by the rush of the noise of the water that we're at it's a kind of a weir really, and it's not wide. From the back of the pool is probably 20-25 feet, but I can imagine that winter time and snow melt, the water comes cascading down and thundering down the river and making it a deep pot. We're told it's an interesting place to fish for these bigger fish, possibly a sizable marble trout or brown trout. So Steve has got a really heavy streamer on and is throwing it into the pool, see if anyone's home. So that's the end of day 2, and we got to the honey hole at the top, and I think Steve had one on a streamer. I think he's quite enjoying throwing those. I got a nice hybrid trout. We worked really hard. You can see it's a honey hole. It's deep, it's not huge, but we threw all sorts of metal at them, rested the pool a little bit, did all sorts of things to try and find somebody. Was it fun? Yes, it was fantastic fun. And to be able to see your flies working in the water, streamers coming through, fish chasing after them. The bigger ones eluded us today. Like I say, we tried absolutely everything. The takeaways from this are, I was watching Vito and I was chatting to him while Steve was fishing. I was sitting down as Steve worked the pool. And as somebody who's guided themselves, I could see that he's like, I'll talk to you, but I need to focus on Steve. And it was really pleasing to be able to see that and watch somebody, it's a sort of place, if you weren't the most motivated person, you could just dump your people in there and leave them off to fish and sit and relax and do everything else. But he was clearly focused on exactly what he wanted to do, where he wanted Steve to put the fly and everything with it. And it's really nice to be able to see these things. Was it fun? Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed every little second. And I'm not a big Euro nympher, but I've enjoyed every second of flipping nymphs into pots, thinking about how I'm presenting the flies, how I'm working them in the water. And in my mind, and from what I heard from Vito as well, is that, these big marbles will sit around the rocks. So I was thinking about how I'd fish my flies down the edge of them. Even if I'd gone upstream, I'd sort of flip them downstream and then jig my rod back upstream again, parallel to the water, just to see if I could tease somebody out of their hole. But didn't happen this time, but really, really enjoyed every second of that. Just walking back to the car now, and there's a small put and take fishery, probably 3/4 of an acre, something like that. And it is so pleasing to see kids around it. They got little spinning rods. Vito said there are rainbow trout in there, and this just makes me so happy seeing this sort of stuff going on. The kids look like they're having a ball in there. They're sort of throwing their spinners all over the shop, seeing if they can find something. This is what it's all about, and it's really, really pleasing to see this. The other thing that was really interesting, I'd sort of waded up the edge of the river, and all of a sudden a guy came out of the woods out of nowhere to ask me if I had my license, which of course we had. But it was really cool to see that, and he'd sort of turned up and he had a uniform on and a van with a fish on it. And the guys yesterday as well got carded, and the guys wanted to see it, and it's really well policed, Vito, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the Associazione Pescatori Alto Sarca, so is the trust managing this water, is doing a great job, because you can making rules, but you have to enforce the rule, without bailiffs, without the constant vigilation, without the constant observation. It's very difficult to enforce the rule. And then the culture will come after, because the more people will be checked, the more they will comply, and it will be like a domino effect. They're doing a great job.
And that's really cool to hear. And I was just watching the kids here. The lovely thing, there's no supervision. Obviously, there's an adult around there, but they're just letting them have fun. They're sort of throwing it, and they're just having fun, aren't they?
They are enjoying, in a controlled environment, fishing, because, let's not forget why we fish. It's about the fish, but it's about being in this environment. Maybe I can see now in front of my eyes, there is a father with a son. He's trying to teach him how to cast, and they will be the future memories. So we are experiencing something, right? This is healthy to me, an healthy way to spend the summertime, like we did maybe when we were kids. So that's great.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see this, and it's no doubt it's going on in the UK as well, and of course it is, with all these great incentives to get kids fishing. But you can just see they're loving it. They're not sort of sitting there bored. They're sort of throwing it out there and see if anyone bites the lure. And I love it. It's a perfect end to the day. We're still walking back. There's nothing like watching what you guess are anglers leaning over, looking into the pools. And we bumped into Felix and Matthias from Amsterdam, who are here. They've got Patagonia tops on, everything. So you can sniff a fisherman from a long distance, and they were quizzing us about how we've been fishing, what we've been doing. You guys are camping here. You've been fishing downstream. How's it been, Felix?
Well, we've been to Val di Fumo, high in the mountains, around 2,000 meters of height. And we've caught loads of brook trout on small, very small dry flies, which was loads of fun. Yeah, and also some brown trout on nymphs, and you can see them come up from a meter of depth to take your small fly. It was incredible.
And you've had a good time in Taos too, yeah?
Yeah, no, it was amazing. For me, it's the first time here in the Dolomites. I just started fly fishing, like a year ago, I think?
Yes, a year ago.
And it's heaven. It's great.
And we've had on the podcast, I think, 3 people from the Netherlands now. And there was somebody at the hotel we were talking to last night as well. There is a very strong fly fishing culture in the Netherlands as well, isn't there?
Yes, the Netherlands is very popular for its pike fishing on the fly, but also big carps are being caught, as well as sea bass and some trouts on the lakes. So yes, we do have our own piece of fly fishing down there.
Fantastic. And you found, I think this is heaven, isn't it?
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely love it here, and we wish you the very best of luck. So have a great trip.
Thank you.
Thank you. Same to you.
So I said earlier that the grapevine had been ringing quite aggressively. And we come back to the hotel, and the lovely thing at the end of the day is that we all sit out the front there, we talk rubbish and enjoy each other's successes as well, which has been great. And Mark, this is your first time to Italy, and you've had the day with Stefano today, and went pretty well, didn't it? You were after a grayling. How did it go?
Yeah, absolutely. My mind is still blown completely. But it was one of those days with Stefano, and I couldn't have done it without him. But literally looking into a river, started off by looking at a very, 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 very steep slope to get down, which we had to physically climb down, standing on a ledge that was no more than 2.5 feet. And my first opportunity to Euro-nymph, learning as I was going, watching this fish and just the right tension and just feeling the faintest of little taps and lift, and all hell broke loose. Literally all hell broke loose, with Stefano saying, "Be gentle." I am being gentle. Be gentle. And the fight, 5-6 minutes of fight, she tried to climb trees. She was up in the bushes. She just kept jumping. We finally got her in the net, and she only fitted in my net nose down. She was longer than the net. It was stunning.
And so listeners, they'll want to know, how long was it, and an approximation of weight, I guess, to give people an idea.
Stefano, and we measured it out after we'd released the fish. 58 centimeters, which we sort of estimated was about 4 pound 2 ounces, something like that. I'll never catch a fish like that again. I'd like to think I might, actually, but crazy. And it wasn't even in a big river. It was in a tiny little, almost stream-like section, very deep hole, and just there she was. And it was stunning.
And so, huge grayling and Italy, people probably wouldn't think that way. Has that sort of shifted for you, that as well, that seeing this fish that's absolutely extraordinary come out, eat your fly, first Euro-nymphing session, and how does that feel right now?
It's hard to describe. It's almost sensory overload. I'm trying to compartmentalize each section and think about it, and I still get shaky and shivers. The whole aspect of grayling fishing coming from the southern chalk streams, where beautiful grayling, absolutely adore them. I've been lucky enough to have a couple of 3-pounders off the Derbyshire Wye, which were just absolutely astounding in themselves. But this, I could have just finished fishing there and just walked away. I did say I'll just go and sit in the bar and have a couple of beers and just contemplate. But what was even more amazing was as I was learning to French nymph, and I was just trying to get the tension correct, high rod, bring it through, and being a chalk stream fisherman, I sort of got to opposite me and felt that I needed to lift, but I didn't, and I let it go downstream, and a 40 centimetre brown trout took it. and that was like, oh, this works. Never done it before. It really, right, let's get into this. And it's a hard technique. Couldn't have done it without Stefano, whose instruction on it was fantastic. But a 2-weight rod, and the nymph was a size 20.
Fantastic. So has Italy delivered for you, do you think?
More than delivered, in every aspect. The fishing, the company, the area that we're in. I know it isn't all about numbers, but I've had just as much fun picking pockets with tiny little trout. I even had some marble trout today, hybrids, 22 fish in total today. I could have kept going, but I'm exhausted.
Nicely done. And we can't finish the day without speaking to Stefano as well, because I know as a former guide, there is quite a nice feeling, isn't it? When you've ended the day, you've got incredibly happy guests with you, and you've done your part of the deal. And all of the guys have today. They've been absolutely outstanding. They're all great company, deeply knowledgeable fishermen, but 48 centimetres, man.
Yeah, the day was great. The start was looking to find the right spot for the activity, and there was a little rain, and we arrived to stop to look in a place how was the condition of the river, and we saw in this flat the fish were rising. So we started to take confidence with the water in that place, with a few fish each, some on the dry, some on the nymph, dry dropper. And then when the sun comes out, I say, it's time to go at work. And we done. And I'm crazy happy because, for a guide, when a customers catch some of that fish, that big fish, and nice, beautiful fight, and you arrive to help the customers to arrive to that results, it's something crazy. And the face of your customers is the only things I remember, to be honest, every time. Not really the fish, yes, the fish, but just in part. The face when they breathe after the fight is the best part of the day.
Absolutely fantastic. And I've got to apologise to both of you, because I said 48 centimetres, it's 58 centimetres. That is an extraordinary day, and it's just so thrilling. The group particularly as well, it's everyone's super excited for you, and yeah, fish of a lifetime. Hopefully there may be some more somewhere, so something to challenge you tomorrow perhaps as well.
I hope so. I could retire now. I feel like Stuart Broad.
Yeah. Euro nymph 1 and out, 58 centimetres. I'd take that, absolutely. Let's celebrate. And aside from the Sarka system as well, Vito's telling me that there's a lot of work done on the river where Mark caught his grayling today. Can you tell us a bit about it, please, Vito?
Of course, the Alto Chiese is a wonderful river, very different from the Sarka River actually, because as we already said, I think the Sarka River is a proper river system starting from many branches connecting one river. The River Chiese is the classical single river, so from a spring, from a glacier down to the valley where Mark got that wonderful grayling. And really I have to mention the Associazione Pescatori Alto Chiese, because they did an amazing job. When I started, now I started to feel old, because that was several years ago, and I still remember with Christian, who was the president and is still so much involved. They put so much effort to manage the river, because, let's remember that all those trusts are no-profit trusts. Everything they get from permits, licenses, and so on goes on the river, so you will see it. And, we kind of grew up together on that river in terms of not only business, but, when you see something, when you have a vision and you think this will be heaven, not only for us, but also for people that can come here from abroad, from different countries. And it's so amazing to see, a river in a great shape after years, and see someone from the UK, in this case, come and benefit from the beauty of this river. So for me, it's a great joy.
It's the last day. You feel sometimes a little sense of melancholy as you think you've only got one more day of fishing, but that's a day of fishing, and any day of fishing is a good day. We made a drive up. We met, as we always do, in the morning, spoke to the guides, and everything's really carefully prepared. But for today, we're heading back. They've worked really, really hard to take us and show us new, different waters, challenge us in different ways. But today, we're all sort of hanging out and spending the day together. And we've made the drive up the mountain this morning. And I'm standing with Paolo. We've had a lovely car journey. We've been talking about guiding and the things we used to do when things didn't always go to plan. But Paolo, where are we this morning?
Okay, for the last day of the trip, we choose to bring you up to a mountain lake. The name is Cornisello Lake, at 7,000 feet above sea level. Today is quite a foggy day, but the weather in the mountain changes really quick, and could be out of a sudden a nice view of the Dolomite, some marmots around. We have bear, but it's really difficult to spot them. But will be a dream to complete the day.
Absolutely. And this lake, obviously, I know from last time, we've got a little surprise in there for the guys who haven't been up there before. Slightly different species as well.
Yes. So there's a small creek between the lake, because there are two lakes. It's possible to have also brookie. But the main target here is Arctic char and brown that can grow really big, because it's difficult to explain, but they hide. They find a good cave in some weeds, and the lake is full of you call tadpole?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's also good meal,
Yeah. So, and we're looking forward to that. And Mark, especially as well, he's had his grayling. You caught a brookie as well, have you so far? Have you caught a brookie? Marble, yeah. So I think he's after a brookie and a char to see if he can get a full house today. The sun now, look at that, is starting to lift. It's amazing. It's like a theatre curtain has just parted, and we can see these beautiful mountains. And everything has become clear, and the guys who've not been up here before now are starting to get a look, and you can't see to our right. There's a little bit of fog here to our right, but you will get an extraordinary view of the mountainside. The walk-in is 5-10 minutes, and the lake is probably a couple of acres in size, and is really, really exciting to fish. And the plan is to fish that this morning, and we're all going to have lunch together afterwards as well, and then everyone's going to choose, I'd call it, Paolo, a playground of fishing, because there's so much variety in this little spot that we're fishing as well. We've got the lake, we've got the mountain streams coming in and out, and then we head downstream, and we stopped for a few moments to have a look there. It was almost like a spring creek down there, and we were watching fish gently and happily rising. It's a real playground for an angler, isn't it?
I think is our strength. That in a few driving distance, we can really change target, change environment, and try to satisfy the dream of the customer, of the fly fisherman.
Yeah, and you've done that, and I know I've said previously that the guys have worked really hard to do that. They could have gone through that easy route of just taking us where we went last time, and would have had a wonderful time, but they thought hard and long about where we were going to fish, and a variety, and topped off by some beautiful fish and varied fishing for all of us yesterday and the first day as well. So this will be the bonus day, I think, in some respects, that we all get to share the excitement together if somebody catches or a fish, and that's part of that. And the group has been, for me, again, and you always worry when a group comes away, but of course some of these guys have been with us before, and the newcomers as well have slotted in perfectly, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So we've had a great time, and Paolo, I'm looking forward to today. It's going to be fun. Yeah,
I hope it will be great.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Got to know Stefano a little bit now, and he knows me as an angler, and one of the guys, I'm going to go and find out how the guy's getting on with the char. He took me to the side, and there's a tiny little stream that runs out of the lake, and the stream is in places 3-4 feet wide, overhanging brush, and I think I've just been to bowcasting heaven. Incredibly difficult to get a shot in there, but if you did, a fish might come out, come eat your fly and pay you the compliment, and it's just perfect. And that's one of the nice things, as I said, I've got to know Stefano a little bit, and he knows the sort of stuff, the shitty stuff I like to fish, and see if I can find a fish in those spots. And yeah, I loved that, absolutely loved it. I described this place as a playground in the opening segment, and I've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous. So I've gone up onto the Char Lake and made a few casts. Jay, I used your ant pattern and had my first char, and I've never caught one before. And of course they're the same family as brookies, and you can see the brookie colour there, absolutely stunning. Vito came over and took a few photos, and I saw it come up and absolutely hammer the fly. So yeah, there's a mix. Ray and Dan are fishing the lake too. I don't know if Ray's the other side, so I've not got to speak to him yet. I don't know if he's popped his char cherry, but I know Dan certainly has, which is really, really cool to hear. So aside from Mark's grayling yesterday, Ray and Dan were fishing a little bit further up the river, and there you're actually casting, rather than fishing the water, you're casting to sighted fish, which is also exciting and nerve-wracking. And it was wonderful to hear when Dan came back, and this has been the really nice thing, that when everyone comes back in the evening, we hear about successes, about when I fell in, all those sorts of things, and we laugh about all of it, and that's been great. But we saw the photos. That was a pretty nice trout, Dan, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really good, and it took me by surprise, because we were focusing on about 3 or 4 fish that were moving around in the middle of the pool, to no avail. I think it's this phenomenal fishing because it's small pools amongst tumbling cascades through rocks, and you're hopping about all over the place. And the fish have probably got quite wily, because it's fantastic sight fishing for sort of larger trout than you'd expect in that kind of water. And so we were trying to catch these 3 or 4 fish around the middle of the pool without success, changing flies 3 or 4 times, taking in turns with your friend Ray, each trying to get a shot. And they would sort of flicker and make a bit of an angle and have a look, and nothing was working. And then just about when we were going to call it a day, from the middle of nowhere, other side of the river, stonking trout zooms in from the side, takes, and it actually stuck. So it was phenomenal, really exciting.
And how big was it, Dan?
It was about, I think they were perhaps being a bit over generous, but Paolo said 40 to 45 centimetres. But it was a beautifully conditioned fish. Some of them are quite lean, as you'd expect in the mountains, big tails, big heads, and not that much in between. But this one was a really beautifully conditioned fish, and lovely silver. It really reminded me of a kind of sea trout you might catch around, South Devon, which I do as well. It really did look like a small sea trout, and it gave a fantastic account of itself. Really good.
And that was wonderful to see, and that was huge congratulations for that one. And everyone sort of passes around their phone and shows proudly their fish, and it's kind of cool. I like that. We had lunch in the mountains, tagliatelle with boar, and that was fantastic. And then Stefano said, I have a present for you. And we walked downstream where the lake drops away, and there's a little side channel. And yeah, that was my thing. That was pretty cool, wasn't it, that little spot?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Then the rain arrived and don't pay like I expect, but we get one really beautiful trout at the start of that. And, it's a little present, but it's good. Now becomes tradition to finish the trip in small streams.
Stefano, on the last trip, put me in a channel that was probably 8-10 inches wide, and we found brook trout. So like he said, it's become a tradition to find me a shitty, tiny little channel to try and catch a fish, and it was fantastic to be able to catch these wild, feisty, aggressive fish. So we're going up. Kieran's just fishing upstream of us, so he's on the main part of the river now, and we're going to go and find him, see how he's getting on. The sky has been ominous most of the day. We've had sort of, as Stefano said, light rain, but no more than that. And I've just got a fleece that Kieran lent me, and I'm absolutely fine. But yeah, that's been a fabulous session. Kieran and Stefano have gone upstream. Kieran caught a fish while we watched, and I was left alone, and I found a nice corner pool, caught some fish, went up to the next one and thought just one more. I didn't catch one more in that pool, but it didn't matter. It seems to me, certainly for the time being, that's the right place to stop. How would I describe it? Well, I talk about Dartmoor a lot on the podcast and the effect it had on me, and why I moved to Devon 20 plus years ago to be by those streams. I think that's why I love this so much, because it reminds me of Dartmoor, but it's a turbocharged version. And it's all the I'm just going to say all the better. It's not fair saying it's all the better. It's different, but I think that's why I feel such a close affection for it. It kind of feels like home, but it's not home. The trout are similar, possibly a tiny bit bigger. If you don't know Dartmoor, look it up. I'm sure many UK listeners will. And fishing pocket waters, steep falls, just dropping your fly. If anyone takes it, great. If not, you move on to the next one. And just keep fishing the water, and that's why I've loved it. I'm tired, you can probably hear as well. We're at 7,000 feet, and I'm walking up a really, really steep slope. But I'm tired but happy. It's only been 3 days of fishing. It often feels it's not enough, but it is, because it keeps my appetite ready for the next time. I was talking to Kieran about what the trip meant to him, and he's a very fine angler and incredibly modest, and I've asked him, not pressurized him, just asked him to sum up what he felt about this in just one word. So Kieran, it's been wonderful to have you along. I've loved fishing with you. What's the word that sums this up for you?
Thank you, Pete. It's ethereal.
There we go. So this is the end of Fly Culture, the Italian Job Part 2. And Vito, I think, well, you definitely pulled it off again. It was a fantastic trip. Thank you. Thank you to Stefano and Paolo too. It's just been fabulous. The mixture of fishing, the laughs, the quality of it. You guys going beyond the call of duty to make sure we had a wonderful time has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Man, you are making me crying, blush, I'm emotional. So first thing to be said is that this is the end of the Fly Culture trip this year so far. And we are going to do another one for sure. And I'm so happy. I mean, I'm very sad because goodbye. I don't like goodbyes. I will never do. But that's fine. I'm so happy because, in 3 days we did 3 different kind of things. Today we said it a bit more. It was a bit more about the environment. We fished at 7,000 feet, which is not an everyday thing. We also had a nice lunch with a view, even with the clouds, on the mountain environment, on a nice mountain hut. And so today was more on the relaxing side, and also a bit of banters at the end, which, is always important for all of us. And I think I can really speak on behalf of Italy on the Fly team. Of all of us, it has been a great trip, and we always look forward to share these days with this group, because for us it is special, and believe me, it is.
That's so kind of you, and it has been fantastic. And the takeaway from it has not just been the fishing. You know, we've caught, and the guys, and I mean as a party, of course, some really amazing fish. But it's been everything else. And I think I may have said somewhere, and apologies if I had, but, you know, everyone was genuinely pleased for Mark with his grayling, with Dan with his great big trout, and we all shared the stories, we laughed. And that's a big part of it. And to me, it sums up fly culture perfectly, that yes, the fish are great, the fishing's been amazing, but it's about a whole lot more. And I think you've captured that wonderfully for us. As Vito says, there's going to be Fly Culture Italian Job Part 3. If you are interested, let me know. If you're the sort of person who takes pleasure in other people catching fish, enjoys sitting around talking about what fishing means to you, enjoys casting dry flies to rising trout, hanging out with some really great people, then just contact me and send me an email and pete@flyculturemag.com, and we can talk some more. The great thing about this trip is that everything's included. So Vito has put everything together so that we just turn up at the airport and then we just go fishing, and it's fabulous from that point of view and has been really enjoyable. I get nothing out of this other than being a happy fisherman. We're also thinking as well about bass. Italy has really got under my skin, Trentino without a shadow of a doubt, but also Vito is operating a bass trip in a lagoon, and we're thinking about doing something in October, possibly this year, actually, if we can. Again, just email me. Vito's going to tell us a little bit more about it in a second, but just email me at pete@flyculturemag.com if you'd like to hear about some more about that. But Vito, tell us about bass too.
Well, have you got 1 hour or two left on the podcast? No, I mean, it will be a completely different experience. We are so much in love with Trentino, its mountains, its Alps and Dolomites, and the wonderful trout. Today, actually, to be mentioned, you caught nice char, and that's the Salbellinus alpinus. It's important to remember that this is the native char. Because we call them salmerino, but there is the Salbellinus fontinalis, we call it salmerino, which is the brook trout that got introduced. But today you had the alpinus, which is the native one, and it's not easy to catch on the fly. But here there is that lake where they are more on top water, so you can catch it on the dry fly, which is one of a kind. But Italy, you know, has got miles and miles of coast, and has got a very special place, which is a saltwater lagoon. I mean, the best way to describe it is, you know, a tropical flat, more than 10 square miles extension, average depth 5 foot, with plenty of Mediterranean sea bass. Of course, top water is the heaven over there with water exploding. It's a challenge on the fly because we fish from the boat, casting with the wind, and you have to cast far, you have to strip fast. It's tough, but it's so rewarding. So it's another experience. You know, it's difficult to talk about Italy because in the north you got a certain Italy. In the central, southern Italy, you got a different Italy, different food, different culture. So it is like a completely different trip. And you must experience it, actually, if you are into the salt water, into the coast. That is a wonderful lagoon in southern Tuscany, so like the stereotype of the Italian wine, the Italian food, and all the rest.
And it sounds fantastic. As I said, I think it sounds an amazing trip. And the thing I've talked about a little bit on here as well, and as I said, it's just been a wonderful trip. I've been around guiding a long, long time, and I know good guides, and these are some of the best, if not the best, I've ever come across. And that's why I want to keep fishing with these guys. So they're fantastic. They're great company. They're great fun. And the people that we have on these trips, it's just relaxed and it's easy. And if you like fly culture, I think you'll probably like these trips too. But just drop me a line if you'd like to hear some more. Thanks so much for listening.
The Fly Culture podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly print magazine. For more information, please visit flyculturemag.com. You can also find Fly Culture on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.